So the Torah goes through, started speaking last time about the idea of kashrut, and the Torah goes through the list of the non-kosher. First it gives you a list of the kosher animals because there are more that are not kosher. Then it gives you a list of the non-kosher birds because there are more kosher species than non-kosher. So the Torah always gives you always lists the lesser. You know, it's easier to list to list the fewer than the many. So it goes through the list of the birds, and it's just interesting because I don't know what kind of fowl people eat other than chicken. I don't know anybody who eats that. I don't know if you ever had duck. I think that's about it. That's the extent of the fowl that I've had. I've had chicken, I've had duck, turkey. I've had some turkey, and even there, not everybody eats turkey, by the way. There are some people who will not eat turkey because turkey, we don't have a tradition dating back on. There are those that claim you have to have a tradition, all the animals. Now, anatomically, turkey is exactly the same as a chicken. But there are people who are machmer, won't eat turkey. I do. But there are those who don't. So I don't even know what, I don't know. Now, the other thing that are kosher, is there are certain types of locusts that are kosher, which Yemenites eat them. They have a tradition on them, most of us. So it's not only we don't eat them, we wouldn't want to eat them, right? But apparently if they eat them, they're good. Otherwise they wouldn't be eating them. That's the rule in life. If people eat it, it's good. If it's not good, they won't eat it. It's
very crunchy.
Yeah, crunchy. Yeah. So there are, So again, anything you're not used to. So all these foods, these are all kosher. Grasshoppers.
Oxtail, they call it
oxtail. Yeah.
Is that kosher?
Yeah. There's a tail they sell. You have to order it special apparently. Apparently it's kosher. I don't know any reason why it's not be kosher. I just never seen it, and apparently it's supposed to be very, very delicious. The Sephardi cab driver once told me it's supposed to be very delicious. They had I've never had it. They have lamb. People eat lamb. They have a lamb's head on Rosh Hashanah. You put a lamb's head on the table.
With rubia.
For what's that? With rubia. They put on the lamb's head. So we eat these things. A lot of it has to do with conditioning. A lot of it has to do with how you're conditioned. People used to eat the gefilte fish. There was this glitch in the gefilte fish. In the jar, there's the jelly from the gefilte fish, which again, but then again, you guys eat sushi, so I have no respect for you. So a lot of it is cultural. A lot of it has to see the way we eat now. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein has a very interesting tshuva. And the Igros Moshe writes like this, there's that in the laws of making brachas, so one of the things where people stumble is that there's a law that if you eat a lot of different foods and you have cake, there's a limit on how much mazonos you could eat without having to wash and bench. So if you sit down with just cake, right, if you eat a certain amount, and it's very difficult to know in halacha exactly how much, because it's not really a weight measure as much as a volume measure, generally estimated to be about 220 or 230 grams, you're already into an area where you may have to wash, okay? Now, if you eat the cake with other food, then there's less cake that you can eat, and the halacha says, if you eat cake in the amount that you would normally be eating bread with that food, then you already have to wash. So, for example, when if my wife makes me lunch, sometimes I'll have meat and there's potato knishes. So I'll just wash on the potato knishes. It's a mazonos, but I'm making a meal out of it. I'm going to eat at least as much as I would eat bread with a meat meal, and I have no problem. I wash and bench on the potato knish because it's with whatever it is because of the amount. Now, that's what the halacha says. Now, when does this become a problem? For Jews, when does this become a problem? It becomes an issue at kiddushes. When you go to a kiddush, after, especially an American kiddush, after shul, so they have cake and they have cholent and they have gefilte fish and they got, and take no prisoners. Problem is that you're eating the cake and you could very well easily run into a problem having to wash and bench. So that's why, by the way, do you know where Yerushalmi Kugel comes from? Where does Yerushalmi Kugel come from? We have Yerushalmi Kugel that they have in Israel. Yerushalmi Kugel was a response to this problem that after shul, they go to a kiddush, people are hungry. You haven't eaten yet, and you're hungry. But the Yerushalmi Kugel is a mazonos, but it's a mazonos that's cooked in a pot. Mazonos cooked in a pot, you could eat without washing and benching as much as you want. Therefore, in the Yerushalmi tradition, became serve Yerushalmi Kugel. The worst thing will happen if you have 2 pieces, 3 pieces, you never get into washing and benching problems because that's what the halacha says. So that's why they have the Yerushalmi Kugel. That's where the tradition is. Like gefilte fish. Where did gefilte fish come from? I grew up thinking gefilte fish. Gefilte was the name of a type of fish, right? Gefilte fish, right? So the gefilte fish is because in order to avoid the problem of taking bones out of fish, where you could run into borer problems, so the tradition is that if you eat fish on Shabbos, which you're supposed to, make the fish where it's ground up and there's no picking out bones. That's where it comes from in order to get around the halachic process. Again, I imagine there are also financial considerations there, because a lot of gefilte fish, you put in filler in the gefilte fish and that sort of thing. So Rabbi Moshe Feinstein was asked, how much cake are you allowed to eat with, what is the amount of cake that you're allowed to eat with meat or with a meal, that you would have to get into this washing and benching question. So Rabbi Moshe Feinstein has a very interesting, the way he words it, he says, well, he talks about that the standard is how much bread you would eat with the meal. He says, in this land that has been blessed with abundance, referring to the United States, it's less. You could get away with eating less cake, not more cake, because many people eat one slice of bread or two slices of bread with the meal maximum. And your grandparents or great-grandparents never ate a meal without bread, and they never ate a meal without soup. Now, when I was in high school, I never touched bread during the week. Why should I eat bread? I could be filling up on meat and potatoes. What do I want to mess around with some rye bread for? Who needs the bread? So that's exactly what Moshe is talking about, because we ate meat and potato. We grew up on meat and potatoes. My grandfather never ate a meal without soup and without borscht, and filler stuff. I don't eat soup to this day. I don't even eat soup on Friday nights. I mean, I'm Jewish, but I don't eat soup on Friday nights. Once in a while, I'll have a bowl of soup Shabbos after. I'm not going to waste good stomach space Friday night on soup when there's all sorts of good things on the table. There are all sorts of creatures who've made the supreme sacrifice to be at the Shabbos table. Why would I want to fill up on soup? Many families do serve soup because soup is a budget save. Soup helps your budget because it fills you up, and you don't need as much of the other things. That's how Jews ate. So here the Torah talks about the various animals we could and can't eat. Now, what's interesting is Rabbi Laufer pointed out to me years ago, if you take a look at Perek Yud Aleph Pasuk Tes, so it says it's right in the middle of the page when it talks about the fish. Talk about what fish you're allowed to eat. So it's ezet tochlu mikol asher b'mayim. This is what you can eat from the water. Kol asher lo snapir v'kaskeses b'mayim b'yomim v'anacholim osam tochelo. Anything that has fins and scales, you're allowed to eat. Now there are certain types of fish that actually have fins and scales in the water, and then when they go up on dry land, they leave their fins and scales in the water. They shed them. They shed the scales, not the fins, but they shed the scales. That's okay. That's still a kosher fish. That's considered a kosher fish. I don't know which fish that happens to, but they shed and go up. I just read an article yesterday. They have a report. These whales are committing suicide. The whales washing up on the shore of, I think it was, where was it? Australia or somewhere where Cape Town. I'm not sure where it was. Where these whales. They don't understand why these huge whales. They're huge whales that just swim up on shore and they die on the shore. They don't understand why the
happening all around the world. Actually.
Yeah, the whales are depressed. Apparently, they don't know why they're trying to figure out what it is. Some of them were sick, and that's why they go. They don't know. It's interesting what do you call it. So here the Torah says the fish have to have fins and scales. Now, what's interesting about fish is that first of all, one of the reasons we eat fish on Shabbos is it says you should eat fish at 3 meals on Shabbos. If you don't like fish, you do not have to. Shabbos is for delight, and therefore you don't have to punish yourself if you don't like fish. But there is an idea of eating fish. It is highly recommended. And one of the ideas is because fish is dag. Dag, in the numerical value of dag is 7. Dag is 7, so symbolic we eat fish on Shabbos, number one. Number two, there's an idea fish don't have eyelids. Fish don't have eyelids. You ever notice that? You never see a fish wink. Fish never wink. Fish don't have eyelids. Their eyes are always open. So one of the ideas the commentators points out, the idea is to show that we are under God's direct supervision always. That God's eye is on us all the time, symbolically. That's the idea of basar v'dagim, that you have fish on Shabbos. Now, what Rabbi Laufer pointed out is very fascinating. Where do you find fish? Fish are in the water. Fish are in the water. Water is always symbolic of what? Torah. Ein mayim ela Torah. The most basic need for a human being to survive is water. The most basic need for a Jew to survive is Torah. Without Torah, a person, a Jew who lives without learning, we're not talking about Torah observance now, we're talking about learning Torah, studying Torah, actually studying Torah. It's like a person living without oxygen, living without water. You're living without water. Torah is a basic, the idea of Torah is study, and not even studying Torah for the purpose of knowing the halacha. It's not even a question of knowing what to do. It's a question of studying Torah the same way when you put up a mezuzah. Why did you put up a mezuzah? Because it's a mitzvah. You didn't put up the mezuzah so that every time you walk in the room, and people have their mezuzah minhag, you know, it turns into a whole, what do you call it? You put up a mezuzah, you put on tefillin. Why did you put on tefillin? Because God said to put on tefillin. Why do you study Torah? Because God said to study Torah. Just we're learning the Torah is a mitzvah. Now, part of the idea of water is that water symbolizes humility. That water always goes to the lowest level. And therefore, a person, in order to understand Torah, has to be humble. You have to be willing to acknowledge that somebody may know more than you, and that the Torah certainly knows more than we do. And we have to be willing to accept Torah. We have to be willing to learn Torah. Those are the basic ideas. So, a person sometimes could be immersed in the waters of Torah, and you think you're okay. But look at the fish who symbolizes, fish is swimming through the waters of Torah. And look at the fish, has two symbols. What are they? Fins and scales. What does the fin do? The fin is, he steers, maneuvers. That means you could be in the waters of Torah, but you still have to receive direction. And the scales means you still have to receive protection. It means a person who's learning Torah still needs outside instruction, usually from a Rabbi or a mentor. You have to have somebody gives you direction. And learning Torah is the greatest protection, but we always have to be on our guard. And the symbolism of the fish having the fins and scales is that a person, even learning Torah, has to realize that he always needs direction, and he always has to have protection because the evil inclination lurks at every turn. That's the idea. Okay, the fish are a strange creature. The fish are a completely different environment than human beings. You know, even animals, birds, fish, animals and birds live. They breathe the way we breathe. You know, people sometimes imagine what it's like to be a bird. You've probably had a daydream, what it would be like to be a bird. You never have a day when you have a daydream about what's like, you know, yeah, I have wings and I can fly around in traffic instead of getting caught in traffic. You can imagine, I can imagine coming back as an eagle. You know, that'd be pretty neat, you know, come back as a bird. As a fish, when you try to think, I wonder what it's like being a fish, and you try to, you know, you actually start gagging because you're trying to figure out what it's like to breathe water. And, you know, that's completely different. It's a completely different environment, though. So there's something very symbolic about the fish. Okay. Now, the Torah then goes on and describes all the other animals, and you see how much time the Torah devotes to how a Jew eats. You see how much time the Torah devotes to how a Jew eats, because eating is something that we have to do, and it's a very difficult form of avodas Hashem.